Try right now.
Can you hear me now? Testing, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right, perfect. I'm going to put you on mute real quick. I think maybe
Hey,
Dr.
you sound a little bit low. I can barely pick you up, but
Oh, is this better?
go ahead.
Is that better?
Yeah, I can barely hear you.
All right. Well, let me, we'll try to make this work.
Yeah, I heard you great a while ago, but since something happened here.
All right. Real quick, I'm going to try, see, do you know if Dr. Wallace is already on?
I'm on.
There you are. Okay. So we can hear you too.
Now I can't hear them. I just plugged the speakers in because I think that was. Manny, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, barely.
Can you hear the other panelists?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I hear
Yeah,
everyone.
you guys sound kind of a little low, but let me see. I heard him pretty good earlier. Speakers aren't on, I think. Should be. I just plugged them in. Testing one, testing.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, I'm not, it was funny because I could hear you guys pretty clearly and then you couldn't hear me. Now I can hear you clearly, but all right, talk now. Can you?
Yeah, you're coming in clear over here.
There we go. We got it.
All right. So one last check. Okay, so Dr. Campos is here. Mike, can you hear me?
Yes.
Dr. Wallace?
Yes.
And then Armando, can you hear me?
I can hear you good.
All right, perfect. Well, then let's get this show on the road.
Let's do it.
Let's
do it.
Thank you all for joining us today for this exciting panel that we're having today regarding best practices in student retention for men of color. I appreciate you all entertaining us, or at least humoring us as we've gone through this technical difficulties. But anyways, we have an exciting panel. It's going to be a great conversation regarding around how to address an issue on all of our campuses. I'm going to go ahead and mute you all as speakers real quick, just so that we don't get any feedback, and then I will unmute you all as the presentation starts. But again, thank you all for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and get the slideshow started, and then I'm going to kick it off to our distinguished panel. Again, we are joined by some great speakers. Dr. Emmett Campos from the University of Texas at Austin. We'll talk about the Texas Male Consortium that we have around supporting men of color, as well as some of the work with Project Males, an effort that's housed within the Division of Diversity and Community Engagement at UT Austin. Dr. Michael Nava will talk about his work at Texas State University. Dr. Wallace will talk about his work at U of H downtown. And soon to be Dr. Armando Ponce will talk about the work that he does at Texas Southmost College. And so real quick, I'm going to just be the driver of the slides. Here are the speakers of the bios for our distinguished speakers. I won't read them, but these slides will be available to the audience shortly after the presentation is over. So I will send this to everybody along with their respective contact information. And so please feel free to reach out to them and read more about the work that they're doing at your leisure. And again, these individuals are having are doing great work on their campuses. Now, to initially kind of, again, set the table, men of color in higher education is a topic that is of growing interest on college campuses, 2-year, 4-year, public, private, across the country. Although students of color have experienced gains when it comes to representation on college campuses in form of access and success across the nation, if you really disaggregate that data, men of color continue to lag behind their gender peers and their peers of color. And so despite the increased representation and success, it's really as compared to their female peers, not at the same pace. And really what we're seeing is that men of color are feeling isolated in their classrooms, are struggling with limited social and emotional support from faculty and staff, often dealing with systemic racism and racial microaggressions on their campuses, and dealing with mental health challenges as a result of a number of different factors related to those previously mentioned factors. And again, these aren't unique to any campus, but that being said, every campus is unique, and as such would require personalized, tailored support services to meet the needs of the student bodies. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kick it over to Dr. Campos to be our first speaker. Now let me unmute his mic to make sure that he can talk about Project Males.
All right. All right, Manny, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Very good. How do you want me to cue you up?
I will just move when you give me some verbal cue.
Okay, sounds good. Well, Manny, thank you so much for inviting Project Males to this webinar. And very thankful to Trellis. Trellis has been one of our partners from the very beginning of the project. And I'm going to share a little bit about the work that we do at Project Males. You've set the context a little bit. Typically, when we do these presentations, we start out with some data slides, and you share some of the data for our men of color. And this next slide that you can see, again, this is, if you go back, Manny, just one slide.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah, there you go. So essentially, what we like to start our presentation with is to acknowledge folks that are part of this project. This is a collaboration, and it's successful because we are fortunate enough to have a number of partners that are part of the work that we do at Project Males. Of course, we have our staff. Myself as director, as Manny pointed out, I have 2 full-time staff, and they run 2 of the initiatives that we have that fall under the Project Males umbrella. But again, recognizing our thought partners, and we reference them as thought partners because while we get some financial support from Trellis and Greater Texas Foundation, the Kresge Foundation came on board a couple years ago, and then we have some other partners here. We also like to think of them as thought partners because we invite Trellis to many of our activities, as we do representatives from Greater Texas Foundation, Kresge Foundation. And so this is about engaging our partners in various ways. And one of them is through these conversations that we're having about addressing this issue that is an urgent issue, as you can see from the data. And so I'll be sharing a little bit more about our work. You can continue to the next slide if you'd like, Manny. So Manny shared some data points, and there's some national figures and data that we like to cite that indicate that this is a real issue, a real problem. I'm sure that most of the audience here recognizes that it's a problem, otherwise they wouldn't be joining us on this webinar. But frequently we'll have folks in the audience that don't understand this is an issue. And so we share that data at the national level and then also at the Texas context. This is data that we drew from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. And as you can see, our young men there's various gaps when we frame this problem. There are very gaps that the data indicates. So one of them is within males, the male population. As you can see here, we have 3 data points that compare all males in Texas versus Latinx males versus African American males. As you can see, we're lagging behind all males. Manny also alluded to a gender gap. And we also have another data slide that we like to share. There are many that point and underscore this gender gap that's going on within our communities, our respective communities. For example, out of every 10 degrees earned, 6 of them are earned by Latinas and 4 of them are earned by Latino boys. Now that number is pretty similar within the Black community and other communities as well. So clearly it's a problem. It's been an ongoing problem. And so Project Males has positioned ourselves to address this issue. If you can move to the next slide. Another way of contextualizing this issue before we jump into our response to this problem is the narratives and the stories that are told about our young men. And many of you are probably familiar with a lot of the deficit framing that goes on that in some ends up pathologizing our young men of color. And so what we do is in response to that, we talk about framing and narrating the stories of our young men in terms of asset-based approaches or additive-based approaches, as opposed to those deficit-based framings of what's going on with our young men of color. And so some of those examples we have here in this slide, many of you are probably familiar with these realities of our young men, their overrepresentation in special education, overrepresentation in the school to prison pipeline. I'm sure you're familiar with that concept. A lot of our young men receive much more disciplinary referrals in comparison to, say, other groups, white males and females in some cases. Also, we have those larger structural institutional factors like under-resourced schools and leadership turnover. Here in Austin, East Austin is our Latino African-American, historically Latino African-American communities. And you can see visibly the differences in the lack of resources in comparison to, say, our West Austin schools, for example. And so clearly you see physical manifestations of the lack of resources in the schools that our young men are in. Another important data information that we have here that we've included is fewer males in the teaching ranks. And of course, many of you can probably point to that issue in K-12 and in higher ed, of course. Some of you may be familiar with some of the data about Black and brown teachers in the K-12 schools. Something like 3% are Black or brown males. So clearly, if our young men aren't seeing themselves represented in those kinds of positions, that is an issue. And we know about the research that shows that if faculty administrators look like you, more likely they'll be able to connect, and you'll be able to build that relationship so that they can overcome some of the challenges that they're facing. So you can go to the next slide, Manny. All right, so given that context, the data that we presented, and also this notion of how you frame an issue and is critical. So our response then at Project Males is that we have put together 3 initiatives over the 10 years of our founding. Now, Project Males was founded in 2009, 2010 by Dr. Victor Saenz and Dr. Luis Bonjuan. And that work began with a publication that some of you may be familiar with. It was called The Vanishing Latino Male in Higher Ed. And that began the research agenda focused on Latino males and the challenges they face in K-12 and higher ed. Now, up to that point, there had been some work done with African-American males. There's at least a half a dozen research centers out there around the country that are doing work on Black males, but very little, if any, work was being done with Latino males. So in 2009, Dr. Saenz and Dr. Bonjuan, with that publication, began to accelerate that research agenda on Latino males. Not exclusively, because we do have some of our affiliates working on Black males, Afro-Latinx male population as well. So you'll see up at the top of this graphic our Research Institute. It's a virtual center. And I've got a couple of bullets there that describe what that Research Institute is made of. We talk about the Research Institute having national level impact, and that's because we have our faculty research affiliates that are spread around the country that are working on this issue. At the state level of impact, we have our Texas Ed Consortia for male students of color. And as you can see, we're made up of 3 sectors. We represent 3 sectors: ISDs, community colleges, and universities. We have about 35 to 40 members, paid members. We have an advisory council that helps lead the work. And then we have institutes and our annual Texas Male Student Leadership Summit as well that make up the work of our consortia. And I'll share a little bit more about that here in a moment. And then at the local level of impact, we have our student mentoring program. And again, that's a partnership with school districts, with alternative learning centers, with detention centers here in East Austin, serving about 250 young men of color. We match them up with 70 undergraduate student mentors that we train in a class. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into each of those initiatives here in the next 3 slides, and I'm going to turn it over to the next presenter. So here a little bit more about the consortia. Again, we launched the consortia in 2013. I have 3 of our consortia partners here on our panel that are going to be talking about the work that they do. The consortia represents 6 urban areas around the state of Texas. You can see here a list of the partners that are part of this consortia. Again, we're close to 40 members representing those 3 sectors. We have annual institutes, spring and fall institutes. We have our institute, our 14th institute is coming up in Houston, and Dr. Jerry Wallace will share probably a little bit about that institute. He's going to be hosting us in October, and we have also hosting us there, Houston Independent School District and Houston Community College. So I invite you to those institutes. For those of you in the audience that are from the Houston area, we reach out to us. We can send you information about that institute that's going to be happening at the end of October. And then our Leadership Summit is our signature event. We're going to have that on August 8th and 9th, and that'll be here at UT Austin. Moving to the next slide, our mentoring program that I described, the local level impact. Again, we employ 3 curricular approaches: critical mentoring, social emotional learning, and restorative practice. This is data evidence-based, so we collect quant data, qual data, to inform the work that we do. I got some more other information here. We're part of the DDCE. You may have noticed in that thought partner slide, that was one of our key partners, Division of Diversity Community Engagement. They allow us to do the work that we're able to do. We're one of 60 programs within that are housed within Division of Diversity Community Engagement. You'll see some of the schools here on the map that we're working with. And we've been doing that for 8 years now. Our mentoring programs have been around for 8 years, and we've grown it from 1 school to 18 schools, to 2 school districts, and a couple of charter schools. So you can move to the next slide, Manny, and I'm going to finish up here with just a little bit more information about the Research Institute. These are some of the publications. We have research briefs, 2-page research briefs that are based on journal articles that our affiliates have written. We've got about 19 or 20. You can find those on our website. Some of the other publications, and we published in the last year Research Digest. We'd be happy to share that information with you, drawing on Texas Higher Education coordinating more data. And we published 2 digests, as you can see here, the green and the blue graphic on focus on Latino males and on African American males. And we'd be happy to share those research digests with you. We've come out with our first policy brief based on the Latino Research Digest, De la Ciudad a la Frontera. Again, we can share that information with you as well. And so I'm gonna turn this over to the next presenter, and then I can answer some more questions. I do want you, before we turn this over to the next panelist, is make a note of this Leadership Summit. This is principally for our consortium members. However, we do reserve about 50 to 60 seats for non-consortium members. So if you'd like to attend, please reach out to me after the presentation, and I'd be happy to share some information about our Texas Male Student Leadership Summit. This is focused on the young men that our partners serve. And so the next 3 presenters will be talking about the young men that they serve on their campus, and they bring their young men to the summit every year. We got about 150 to 500 young men that attend the summit. And so I welcome you to attend that as well. That's here at UT Austin. So I'll turn that over to the next presenter. Thank you, Manny.
All right, thank you, Emmett. And I normally would, take questions throughout the presentation, but since we have a number of panelists, I want to make sure to give everybody enough time to share their insights. But we will make time available for Q&A afterwards. Please feel free to use the text portion within Zoom and type in questions as you see fit as well. I'm going to mute Dr. Campos now, and then kick it over to Dr. Mike Nava. Mike, can you hear me?
Sure can. Thank you.
All right. There you go.
Well, good morning. And we want to thank Trellis for inviting us to be part of this webinar and sharing a little bit about what we do here at Texas State with our male network. Before I have you transition to the next slide, I want to give a little bit of background as to how our male network programming began. In 2012, Texas State initiated its quality enhancement plan as part of our SACS reaffirmation, and we launched what we called PACE, which is our Personalized Academic and Career Exploration, which was our first-year initiative programming to serve all first-year incoming students. When we launched it, and then I'll go through the components because we're still utilizing it for our first-year students. When we launched it, we were at a stage where we knew we wanted programming at scale, but we were not at scale with all components of our PACE programming. So for example, we did not have enough academic coaches and peer mentors to serve every student. And as that first year went by, we kind of did an assessment of which students we should ensure that they are at scale, that we're serving the population that was most at risk. And in looking at our data, our minority males, our Hispanic and Black males was the population that we, as most institutions, saw needed the most success. And at the time, the coordinating board had put out a call for mentoring programs or ways of serving men of color. And we were able to get that grant for 2 years. And what that grant allowed us to do was to serve our minority males at capacity with our mentoring and coaching, because we were already doing it through advising, we were already doing it through our Universe 1100 seminar course, as well as our career counseling. But what we did slightly different, because it was funds through the coordinating board, is that we ran those students through mentoring and coaching separately than the mentoring coaching they received in the larger first year experience. And so that allowed us then to kind of see how that population of students benefited from the additional support that they received. So now flashing forward, and if you could, Dr. Gonzalez, forward us to the next slide. We initiated what we now call our male network, which is Men of Action, Leadership, and Excellence. And although the coordinating board grant has expired, we have now initiated our programming to where all first-year students have not only support through PACE, but have support through our male network. So when we think of our male network programming, it's really a program within a program, although it can stand alone. So it does have its own vision and mission, and our goal is to help engage our men of color and help them experience their first year, to develop professionally, develop as students, to get engaged on campus through student organizations, to network with each other, all in the sense of helping them feel part and belonging at Texas State. As a first year transition program, we really engage the students through that interaction and through our PACE success teams. And the numbers that I provided here are really more to just show you how large of a population we are serving each year with our first year. Because a lot of times when we say at scale, people want to know what that scale is. So as you can see, since fall of 2015, we have increased in the number of minority males that are attending Texas State. And we are serving all of those students, not only through our PACE initiative, but through our minority or our male network programming. And just for commentary purposes, we recently changed the name of our program. Initially, we called it Minority Male Initiative, but as we were working with our young men of color, they felt that the naming of the program was more of a deficit model or deficit in their minds. And through their brainstorming, they're the ones that came up with the new name of our program. And so it has helped give them a sense of ownership as well as a sense of belonging, as this gives them more drive to accomplish what we're looking for them to do. And we have seen that students that not only successfully participate in our PACE initiative, but who also engage in our male networking programming tend to be more academically and socially integrated into campus. And as we look at the 1,200 number of 1,241 minority males, that's within a population of students where we're over 6,000 with our freshman class. So we can skip to the next slide. I've given some examples of some of the intentional programming that we do with our men of color, as well as how we engage them separately from what we do in PACE. And I'll talk about PACE in the next slide. But this is just a handful. So the first three are examples of intentional programming. These are activities and events that are separate from PACE, but are for our first year PACE minority male students. The biggest one that has the biggest draw is our roundtables, because it is a chance for our men of color to come together and share with us their concerns as well as some of their successes, so that they can learn from each other and so they can know that they're not alone in this journey. Since we are just right this time serving first year students, we want to keep our continuing students engaged with us. So we do have a male network welcome back type of social, again, where we provide an opportunity for alumni who have returned to Texas State to get back together and to share through their experiences. Some of the things that we have learned, because part of what they go through in PACE is career exploration, is that many of them want additional assistance in that prospect of how do I professionally develop? How do I need to be in that professional environment? So this was just one example where for this one, we actually gave each man of color a tie, and we taught them how to tie different knots based on their personalities and styles. And at this event, because of a connection we had with Men's Warehouse, we were actually able to give out or give away a suit to one lucky gentleman. But these opportunities really represent a chance for our men of color to come together to share with us their experiences, as well as just to engage each other. We designate it as intentional because underlining all of it is the idea of how we can help them be successful, as well as help them with a growth mindset of overcoming whatever challenges they have. As Dr. Campos described earlier, the challenges that our men of color have, I'm sure that we all address those on our campuses as best as we can. And this is one of the ways that we do it. But to help engage them, we do things that help recognize as well as provide direct, personalized service. So there is a male network recognition where men of color who do earn a 3.0 or greater receive a certificate of recognition and a lapel pin. I think that's very popular with many programs out there. We're trying to recognize the success of our men. We do try and outreach with them. I say email, but we use every form, whether it's text, whether it's social media, but we do outreach to them about events that are happening on campus that we believe and what they have shared are relevant to them and to be part of this campus. And then we do have individual meetings because we know that individuals have unique scenarios and challenges that are unique to themselves. And so we do meet with them in addition to the PACE Success team that they have. And April Barnes, who is our Director of Student Success Initiatives, she's the one that meets with them and helps guide them with this individual meetings that we have. So if you can slide me over to the next slide. To kind of give the broader perspective of what we do in our PACE experience or our first year experience, each student has a success team. Each student is assigned an academic advisor, a career counselor, a peer mentor, an academic coach, and a US 1100 faculty. Our academic advisors are here in our PACE Center. They are generalists, so they are trained in the arts of every major. And so it is important for them to be aware of the challenges of our men of color as they are assisting them and guiding them through their choice of major. We have career counselors that help students explore their path, explore what aspirations they have, and to help them find internships. Our peer mentors are underclassmen, typically juniors and seniors. So this is our peer-to-peer model. They are entrenched or part of our US 1100 course. So our peer mentors are in the classroom with our students, and they serve to be that peer-to-peer guide to help the student not only academically integrate, but to socially integrate to Texas State, to learn about our traditions, to learn about our resources on campus, to help them get to navigate campus from the student's perspective. We then have our academic coaching, which is our near-peer model, where we utilize graduate students to help students with their academic success and to strategize how to be more successful academically. They help with anything from time management to test-taking skills to note-taking skills, to how to engage faculty, to how to set goals, not only obtainable goals, but goals that are realistic to the student in terms of what their aspirations are. So our academic coaches work with the students outside of the classroom, but for the classroom environment. And then our US 1100 is our first year transition course that are taught by faculty and staff here at Texas State. The topics that they teach range, again, from anything from money management to test taking to note taking to sustainability to diversity, a wide range of topics to help first year students transition. Now, when we think of this wraparound services that we provide, or the success team that we provide, and we think about how is this beneficial to our men of color, the thing that we do here and that we try to sustain here is the cultural competency that these staff members need to have in order to engage our men of color. So the staff that are part of these teams receive additional training on the challenges that our men of color have or potentially have, or that they can help them overcome, at the same time in a way in which they are not changing their services or making the student feel less than because the staff is aware of who they are, or at least the challenges that they present. This level of cultural competency that we provide helps our staff to engage, as well as to not have to be intrusive or overly intrusive in some of the questions that they ask, just by the mere fact that they understand the student. This way it allows us to serve at scale and not have to serve at a smaller scale in terms of boutique style programming. So our paid success team is a viable option for our first year students in the sense that they have someone at all levels to help them throughout that first year. So much so, many of our students after their first year want a success team as a continuing student. But because we're doing the first year at scale, we all know that's a pretty hefty price in terms of being able to do it. But this is how we serve our men of color here at Texas State. They are part of a larger services for first year experience, but within that experience, we have isolated programming that is intentional and beneficial to the students and allows them to have ownership in it. We meet annually with the students to get their feedback, to see what they need or what they didn't get, so that way we can rearrange our services or alter our services to meet their needs as first year students. We do have plans in the works to expand beyond the first year, but we do have many partners on campus. We have partners within student affairs that provide men of color programming as well. So finding ways to engage them in the conversation as well as engage them in services to help our students be successful. We have seen an uptick in our retention rate with our men of color, but it is in the works. I mean, it is something that we have to continuously work on because, as many of you know, you can provide all the services in the world, but then there are other challenges like financial or family that doesn't matter what you do, the student will still be impacted in terms of retention. So these are the services that we provide. I know that we're going to do questions and answers. So I think my fourth slide or fifth slide that I have is more of contact information, as well as our website to learn more about what we do. But I will be open and happy to answer any questions once we get through the panel. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Armando, can you hear?
I can hear you. Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Well, thank you very much. And again, thank you, Dr. Gonzalez, for providing me with the opportunity to sit on this panel. It's an honor to be here with you, to be here with Dr. Nava and Dr. Campos, and Dr. Wallace. And actually, to give you history of how we got Project Ganas started here at TSC about 7 or 8 years ago. Dr. Gonzalez, Dr. Nava, Dr. Science visited STC to do a study, and actually I was one of the staff members that was kind of charged to host them around and gather students for their focus group that Dr. Gonzalez a few years back. And we actually started some of that work at STC, which in the following year, we actually did our first male summit at South Texas College. And since that time, I moved on to Texas Southmost College, and we actually started a program here, which we call Project Ganas. And Project Ganas stands for Gentlemen Achieving Networking Success. And of course, Ganas in Spanish, of course, means the will, the way. And I kind of got that idea from actually a paper that I read that was led by Dr. Science and Dr. Cabrera about in South Texas, research that they had done about students wanting to go into the higher ed system and not having the college knowledge necessary. Them or their parents had the appropriate information, to kind of to follow that onboarding process. And did they have Ganas? Yes, they did, but they didn't have the knowledge. So the program that we created here at TSC initially started with us offering a summit. And we started actually our summit 2 years ago, and focusing on providing the skills that we think that college knowledge and those skills that our gentlemen lack. And our to other institutions, we had the pleasure of having Dr. Science and Dr. Campos come down and speak at our institution. We had several high schools from the surrounding area, from our service area, and some from outside of service area also attend. And that's one thing that we're currently focused on is continuing to build strong partnerships with the local school districts. We most definitely are using the model that they use for Project Males. And like, unfortunately, like many other community colleges, funding is always an issue. We were fortunate enough to get sponsorships from the community to help us conduct our first summit. We had close to 200 students. Our second summit, we had over 200 students and professionals come in, because our summit we do invite students and professionals, because very much at this point, even after all the work that we've done, we're still in the stage of awareness of the issue. Whether in South Texas, the three institutions that primarily serve the area are Texas Southmost College, University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, and South Texas College. They all hover around 60-40 when it comes as far as the gender gap between males and females. So we definitely identify the need, and not only are men not enrolling, but once they're enrolling, they're not persisting and they're not completing. So the summit for us is a great opportunity to introduce and bring that awareness and to draw students to our program. Now, if you can go to the next slide, Dr. Gonzalez. you know, one thing that we just initiated this year was actually the Platica series, and we kind of, again, we mirror what they do at Project Males at UT Austin, where we bring in community leaders and experts to do a series, a workshop that focuses on the pillars that the consortium has identified, which is the college and career readiness, health and wellness, brotherhood, leadership, and identity. So all of our workshops are aligned with the pillars that have been established by the consortium, and to try to fill those gaps and the things that students aren't learning in the classroom. Now, my background is in student life and student services. So the approach that we're taking is very much program-based and trying to engage and encourage more interaction, more connection with the institution. Now, we're fortunate to have a large number of qualified community members who are more than willing to come and share their expertise, share their knowledge, and really wanting to contribute to our program. If you can go to the next slide. So the slide before it, I'm sorry. Yeah. So our newest initiative now is that we're establishing a mentorship program. Now, since we are a 2-year institution, we're not doing the peer mentorship program. We're doing more a community-based, professional. We right now at this point we have like 22 faculty and staff that have signed up to become mentors, and we also have several community members that are going through the process of getting vetted and getting trained to be mentors for the upcoming fall program. What we're doing now, and to try to similar to what Dr. Nava was mentioning, to do it at scale, is that our first year experience program, we're going to specifically start targeting our males to try to get them into our Project Ganas program. We're going to funnel them into all the programs we do that's specific for males. So every first year experience student that comes in this fall, they're getting redirected to our program. We're going to be contacting them, engaging them. What we've done also is we've strategically picked our committee to have cross-representation, cross-organizational representation throughout the campus. Our mission is to try to have as many change agents on campus as possible, and that will be contributing not only through the mentorship program, through that mentee and mentor relationship, but to identify people on campus that students can go to, and they can get that assistance. They can get that direct line to get their needs met. So we have representation in our advising. We have representation in our financial aid. We have representation in our finance office. We have representation in obviously our faculty and staff. We have facilities. So we're trying to expand our reach by putting those specific change agents that understand the initiative, support the initiative, and the significance of what we're trying to do to help students navigate, their way through our system, through their educational pathway. So at this time, we're not as established as some of the other programs. We're definitely more in the infancy stage, but with the inclusion of the mentorship program and the Platica series, we've had very good results. They're well attended. Currently, we're doing a high school leadership program that's open to all high school students. It's absolutely free for the summer, and we target high school juniors and seniors. And from that cohort, we're actually funneling those male students into our Platica series. So we've had the opportunity to get some of those high school kids, much like the summit, are already plugged into the program. That way, if they do come to Texas Southmost College, they already have a connection. That transition is made easy for them. So for us, that partnership with the ISDs and reaching out to high schools is crucial, and we continue to build the program. We'll be having our third summit March 27th, and of course that's open to anybody who wants to come. It's absolutely free. We're looking forward to obviously growing the summit, and of course partnering with the consortium with Dr. Science and Dr. Campos, and we continue again to kind of expand what we're doing expand our reach and continue to bring awareness to the significance and the importance of our programs. And again, just like everybody, Dr. Campos and Dr. Nava, of course, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have at the conclusion of the presentation.
All right. And I'll go ahead and ask a first question to the panelists. And please, Dr. Campos or Armando or Mike, feel free to chime in. But what is one piece of advice, or what would be the first thing you recommend somebody doing if they want to launch an initiative on their campus? And again, please, anybody feel free to chime in.
Manny, Manny Zemet?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. Of course, the easy answer to that is you need to join our consortium, right? So we welcome all new partners to join us. And, you know, because we understand, and Dr. Science and Dr. Pawan understood from the very get-go, to really have an impact on this work, you need to do it at scale. And I know that there's been a couple of references about the importance of scale. And this has to be a statewide effort. Of course, there's situational, you pointed out, Manny, earlier, there's situational challenges that each institution and each region may face. But I think in order to tackle this issue, we needed to create a network of partners. And you'll note that we are bringing partners from those three sectors, educational sectors: school districts, community colleges, and universities, because the only way you're going to be able to tackle this at that level of scale, at the regional level, is you need to bring in those partners. And so what's happened, in addition to these convenings where we have had 14 institutes, we're getting ready to have our 14th institute in Houston, that allows us to bring all those partners together. The summit allows us to bring our partners from around the state. And what's happened in the last couple of years has been a great development that Armando was alluding to, is that they're ready to plan for their third summit. So what's emerged in the last couple of years, we can't take all the credit for this, but it is modeled on the summit that we do here every year at UT. And so what you're starting to see is regional summits emerge around the state. And so Armando, they're ready to coordinate their third summit. Every year you see larger number of students attend. There's also been regional summits in Houston. If Dr. Wallace is able to join us, he'll talk about some of those regional summits they've been doing. Again, bringing in those key partners. And there's the three sectors that I mentioned, but there's also, we need to acknowledge there's a lot of community partners out there that are doing really important. So while they're not necessarily an institutional partner per se, they are part of the institute's convenings that we do around the state. They're part of the summit. And so I think it's critical to take this at a pipeline pathway approach. So again, bringing in key partners and having those conversations around those issues, but yet also recognizing the unique needs of the regions and the institutions. So.
All right, so I think Dr. Wallace can hear us. Dr. Wallace, can you hear us now?
I can hear you. I'm good.
All right. Sorry for the confusion, everybody. So, Dr. Wallace, I know we're running short on time, but feel free to run through your slides, and we'll try to. We have some questions already queued up, and so I want to be mindful of everyone's time, but I want to give you a chance to talk about what you all are doing at University Downtown.
Good deal. Appreciate you guys again for having us. University of Houston Downtown is a part of the University of Houston system. So we are one of the 4 schools in the system, not UH Central, so not to be confused with the Cougars. We are the Gators. There's also U of H Victoria and U of H Clear Lake. Almost 4 years ago, U of H Downtown decided to create an opportunity where they would hire a director to actually go out and recruit more minority males, specifically African-American and Hispanic males at U of H Downtown. In my background, I had served at 2 institutions prior where I had an opportunity to engage in this kind of work. I was at San Jacinto College. They had the Men of Honor program. and I was the director of academic advising there, where I had an opportunity to engage and help move their program along with some colleagues and faculty staff who were there. Prior to that, I was at Lamar University, even as a student at Lamar University, where I had an opportunity to help move men of color programs and work with faculty and staff there, and continue to support my alma mater in doing that. So at University of Houston downtown, it has been a combination of my experiences at these three institutions, and also connecting with individuals both in state and out of state, of course, being a part of the consortium that have led us to where we are right now. Something unique and specific about what we would call our Men of Legacy program that you see before you. Legacy specifically has to deal with leadership, excellence, grades, access, collaboration, and identity. So these are the things that we built into our program. Our program started as recruitment. So when I came into the position at UHD, I would go out into local high schools, community organizations, nonprofit groups that already had men of color, male of color initiatives that existed, and I would build partnerships and relationships with them. I would go to ISD conferences, summits. I would meet with school principals. I would meet with specific programs at those schools, TRIO, Upward Bound, the GENTS program, which is like a fraternity type of program at certain schools in Houston. And I would build relationships with these groups. So as I began to talk about UH downtown and they brought me in for classroom visits, I helped students apply to UHD, do admissions, financial aid, scholarships, the same thing that a general recruiter might do. But now these students had a direct outlet and direct connection to certain individuals within the institution. So as I begin to build that platform, my colleague, Dr. Vida Robertson, who serves as the director for the Center for Critical Race Studies out of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences at UHD, was also working to build a relationship with faculty. Because we knew once our young men enrolled in U of H downtown, they were going to have specific engagement on campus to build their retention. So me being in the enrollment management student services side of the college and Dr. Vida Robertson being on the faculty side bridged what we would call men of legacy. So our young men, as they go through orientation on campus, we have select orientation just for our young men. We are able to work with advising and enrollment management. The Vice President of Enrollment Management, Dr. Daniel Villanueva, was able to work with him so he could build platforms for us to have our own orientation. So what we would do in orientation is the regular orientation that all students sign up for, but we have segments. And as I'm saying this, orientation is actually happening right now. So I have colleagues who have a group of about 19 young men currently who will be signing up for classes. Our young men during their first 2 years, freshman and sophomore, take classes, 2 courses each semester together. So they'll take English Comp 1, Comp 2, they'll take History 1, History 2, Government 1, Government 2. They'll take Critical Race Studies, which is the social science course that Dr. Vida Robertson teaches. They'll take Communication course. And they will do these classes during their first 2 years in UHD. These are all male classes. Dr. Vida Robertson was key in working with our deans and our faculty on campus to where we were able to put 25 young men, African American, Hispanic males, in classes, all male courses, their first 2 years. In these courses, we're able to build in your critical theory, your cultural theory, your masculine identity and development. You're able to structure even your literature and your English courses around topics where they're writing references and essays on topics geared towards male students of color, whether it's in social justice issues, whether it's in higher education, in social public media, whether it's in business, construction, or any political arena that we deal with in our society. We are able to infuse these things into their coursework and make it specific and unique to them. One big thing that's important about this partnership is that it also included our senior level administrators, our president, our provost, because you also have to offer incentives to these students. So if I'm going out and I'm recruiting and I'm building these community relationships, the biggest challenges, as we all have said before, is that our young men are trying to find themselves within this college environment. Some of them come from institutions where they may have not been prepared academically, or maybe they're the first person in their college, in their family to go to college. So what type of incentives do you give other than just saying, hey, this is a brotherhood, this is a mentoring group, we're going to help you with your grades or whatnot. So we were able to write a few grants. We were able to give our young men a $500 book scholarship their first 2 years. So they get scholarship monies each of their first 2 years in the program. So the first year was an AT&T grant. We also had support from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, as well as our institution gave us hard money to make these things work. We're able to build into these programs the scholarship piece of it. We're able to award our young men academically as they persist throughout the end of the year. So we have an end-of-year banquet where we put medallions on them. They have medallions that have the legacy emblem around their neck. We've had young men thus far graduate as we have gone into our 4th year. So we actually have young men who have graduated. They transferred in, had an opportunity to participate, and they have graduated and gone on. 2 of them are now actually in graduate school. So initially, our program was for first-time in college students, but we did have some transfer students who had an opportunity to participate as well. So as we're able to award our young men and recognize their successes throughout the year, during the year is we can track their grades. We build supplemental instruction into their coursework. We also have a partnership with the College of Public Service. So I transitioned and I eventually became the assistant dean for College of Public Service, which has criminal justice, social work, and urban education. So because I still get to support the program, I actually have social work students who have to do their field practicum. These students, I get 4 students every year who do field practicum as a part of the support for these young men. They actually sit in the classes with these young men. They guide them through the program. They support their social emotional well-being, because we have one group, supplemental instruction, who helps them with the academic piece, but then there's another group of students who support them with the social emotional issues. Because as I heard mentioned earlier, we can give all the academic and mentoring support in the world, but if a young man is worried about working off campus, if he's worried about, my mom has cancer, my parents just got a divorce, I'm the oldest brother of 3 or 4 siblings, these are things that often get in the way of his academic success. So we were able to utilize other students on campus in other capacities in partnership with our academic units. So oftentimes when you hear institutions and programs say, hey, well, there's challenges with funding, there's challenges with mentors or personnel, I would often encourage you to leverage the academic units within your university because I guarantee you there are students who have to do internships, field study, students who want to be teachers or whatnot, and they have an interest and they have to do research on these kind of topics. So it allowed us to an extent to get free labor because we didn't have to pay these students anything because they had to do this work to graduate with their degree. We also have an office space where our new director we just brought on, Dr. Pierre Banks, he's doing an excellent job. He's been with us a few months. He's the one that's doing orientation right now. So we actually have an office space for him where students come in and they engage. We have 2 classrooms that's dedicated to us that have AV technology where we're able to go in and utilize our technology. We are right down the hall from our library and across the hall from our career center, which are all partners in what we do. We also have partnerships with academic advising. So every time our guys get advised, the academic advisors, there are 2 of them, they come directly to our space in our classroom and advise our guys, and they all register at the same time. Same thing with career development. For our young men who have recently graduated, they all go to the career development director at the same time. They get their resumes updated, and they move forward through the process. So these are things that we implemented and we moved forward. And just to kind of read to you real quick a few stats, I was able to get from institutional research just yesterday our data for our young men. Something that I really want to highlight is that what we call our cohort A, which these guys are going into their third year, so they're juniors now. They have a 94% retention rate, whereas the male group overall, we're talking all males at the institution, the retention rate is 57%. For African American and Hispanic males only, the retention rate is also 57%. So for our young men who are in our cohort who are now juniors, they have a 94% retention rate. And we're talking about 43 guys. We will have, we have 43. There were 61 because we did have a few who graduated. Right now we have 19 who are at orientation today, but we will probably have 50 guys come in throughout the entire program for the summer because we have 43 signed up right now. So there is an application process that they do. There is no academic requirement to get into the program. As long as you are admitted into the university, you qualify. You just have to apply through the program. We select you based on your need. So there is a challenge with scale, and I'll say that real quick. Our president wants us to get around 125 to 150 young men in this program. We can do that. It's very possible, but it also means additional personnel. It also means hiring on more staff because currently Dr. Banks is a solo person and he has a team of about 9 students who support what he does, including Dr. Vida Robertson and myself. So we do understand how we can move these things forward, what our challenges are. We published work on this data, and we are seeing great success with our 61 young men thus far. And we will have our symposium, as Dr. Campos mentioned. We'll have our symposium in the fall, November 1. It's a partnership, October 31st and November 1 partnership with Ascending to Men Project out of Houston Independent School District, Houston Community College Men of Honor. We partner with San Jacinto College Men of Honor and our Texas Ed Consortium partners. So this is work that moves students from ISDs to community college through the universities. And we're glad to be a part of this. And again, thank you, Trellis, for the invite.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us. For those of you who have to leave, I will quickly provide everyone's contact information. Feel free to email any of those individuals or the collective group if you have specific questions about their program or about research in general. For those of you who want to stick around for another 5-10 minutes, we'll take some questions because I see a number of questions have come in. Real quick, I will unmute all our panelists again and take a couple of these questions. The first one that I see that seems to be kind of reoccurring is, how do you develop staff and faculty mentors, or how did you create buy-in from those individuals to become mentors? You know, again, creating that kind of momentum to move forward on this issue.
I think that's a good question. I actually had an interest meeting. So I posted information during the first year when I was actually doing the recruitment piece off campus. I built a team also on campus. So we had an interest meeting. We sent out information to the entire university of individuals who are interested in this work. And we had about 20 people come out, faculty and staff come out to the session, and they've been involved ever since. But the key point was our president. Connecting with our president and getting him on board, which he already was interested in this kind of work, and he supports this kind of work. So when your faculty and staff mentors realize and recognize that your senior level executives are a part of this work, are helping you working toward this work, because we all know that this is work, this is challenging, right? And you may have individuals who are interested, but they understand, hey, how do I begin to move forward? So we were able to offer stipends for those individuals who participated. So our faculty who teach classes, we were able to give them a stipend for working with this work. Some of the mentors who engaged, we're able to give them stipends as a part of this work, because we do understand incentives is important, because we do ask them to come to events on and off campus. We do ask them to participate in recruitment activities where we engage high school students. So there are additional things that they do off campus. But getting your institutional support from your leaders and presenting a plan to them is important. When they look at their data, they will know where the need is. But when you go and present this to your executive leadership as a unified group with a plan of what you think you want to do, 2-year, 5-year, 7-year plan, we built this into our strategic plan with student affairs. I also have an assessment plan that I met with institutional research. So I also have assessment models and outcomes built into this. And we presented this information to our president. So it's he's more likely to agree and support the program because we have a model that we were moving towards. Other than just being a student organization, we realized that this had to be an academic support program similar to an honors program or a scholars academy that you may have on campus. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, if anyone else wants to chime in, feel free. Otherwise, I'll ask another question.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
Just want to add. I mean, I echo what Dr. Wallace said. You have to get buy-in from the top down, but the main thing is you have to have a conversation on your campus. In many departments, there are individuals ready, willing, and able to buy into it. They just don't know where the momentum is for them to jump in. A lot of times people are going to see this as, if I take this on, I'm taking it on by myself. But if you have a campus-wide conversation, there's opportunities for people to just almost essentially come out of the woodworks who are willing and able. And even if you have a small group to start, that can gain the momentum as others who maybe have some momentum can get to jump into it. I've seen it happen many times where people feel alone. It's almost like our students, like they feel alone until they find that group to where then they get engaged. It's somewhat like that for our faculty and staff. A lot of our faculty and staff care very much for our students. They're just not able to take it on themselves. But when they know the conversation is being had, when they know that efforts are going to be put together, they are willing to come together and to jump in. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Another question that came up, what is the biggest challenge that you faced in kind of starting this initiative on campus, and how did you overcome it?
I'll start. Because so many initiatives exist in general, you run the risk of people feeling as if you're stepping on their toes or you're doing their job. So the biggest challenge is finding your allies as well as collaborating so that people understand that this is a team effort or an institutional effort. It's not one unit trying to take over someone else's job or trying to do someone else's job. It can be real challenging when people feel as if you're hindering in on their territory, and then you have programs competing against each other to where you have students don't know who to go to, or they develop loyalty programs. So the biggest challenge has been making sure that you've brought all the partners to the table to then discuss who and how can we get this done, and who's best suited. That was, I think, for us. When I came to Texas State, I was coming in and we're implementing the QEP, so I came into conversations that had already been had. So it wasn't as challenging, but I know it can be challenging when one unit says, we're going to start this initiative, when other units have started something on some similar scale, to then you end up, not being as successful because you end up competing. So trying to overcome that.
I want to echo Dr. Nava. It is very to get a team of individuals on campus who agree with the work, because you will need admissions, financial aid, the career center, you will need the counselors, you will need, if you have students who are veterans, you will need those individuals to be a part of the team. And you already have some of the work that's already taking place on your institution. It's just trying to utilize the strategic plan, the institutional strategic plan, to your advantage to leverage what you're trying to do. The biggest challenge that we had is that at the time I was an office of one. We only had enough of institutional budget for one person, and I knew that going into the job. But because I had seen male of color programs at two institutions prior to coming to UHD, I knew what I would have to do in order to create an argument that we would need a bigger team. So going out and building those community partnerships and inviting them to campus. So every time I had a campus meeting, a workshop, I included my colleagues on campus. Dr. Vida Robertson invited his faculty, the deans, and I invited our partners. And I would always send a message to our president, our provost, or our vice president, so they knew this is what's going on campus. These are the male credit groups that they're partnering with. We updated the website daily, and I made sure as we collaborated with Houston Community College and San Jacinto College that we let their leadership know. So their leadership knew, hey, this is opportunities to have students transfer. Even though we only had a few transfers in the beginning, all of these things were moving towards what the institutional goals were. So as we begin to have more of that dialogue, it allows individuals to really understand and recognize how meaningful this work is. Because if you are the one sole person or one few people on your campus who are really actually trying to move the needle with minority males, I can tell you right now, it is a very daunting task. But you have to stick to a particular plan. Our goal is not to, I'm gonna just say, engage every particular group. We understand that there are, 700-800 male students of color who can come in a freshman class. Currently, we do not have the capacity to support that entire group. However, what we do is engage the young men that we can. We offer support to them. We assess the data to them, and then we report it out to our institutional research so they can know, hey, these are other measures of success that should be applied to these other male students. And anytime we have an event, the events are posted live. So any student, male or female, because we do have young ladies who participate in our group as well, any student has an opportunity to come and engage in the activities and events that we partake in on our campus. Building a team of individuals and having a united front is important, but you definitely have to make that argument to your leadership, because it is going to take funding and resources meaning manpower.
All right. We have another question, and this might be the last question, although I will be sharing this presentation with a number of folks because we were getting that request. And so be on the lookout for that. And again, feel free to contact any of these experts as you see fit on any topic that you want to discuss, whether it's academic or practitioner related. But what are some of the community engagement initiatives that you all have on your respective campuses, or are there any community projects for students to do within your programs?
Absolutely. That is, for us at UH Downtown, that's actually a part of our recruitment model. So our symposium that we host in October brings in high school students and community college students. Our young men on campus in the legacy program actually help organize that event, and they kind of serve as the liaisons and the hall monitors and the chaperones for the event. That's just the beginning of it. Throughout the year, every other Friday, we bring over, currently right now, we have Wheatley High School, Cashmere High School, Westbury High School, Booker T. Washington, and yes, Cliff Eisenhower. We would bring those students over on campus, and we would engage those students on campus in conversations around what it's like to be a student. Our young men did student panels on campus with those students. We had lunches with those students. We took them on tours, and our young men were the ones sitting at round tables with them, kind of engaging in the work. When we go out into the communities, our young men participate in the food bank. So we have a big food bank initiative here in Houston because we do have a few food deserts in Houston. So one of our program mentors, Mr. Tremaine Kwashibi, who is the director of student activity, one big piece of our young men is we really try to get them jobs on campus. So we have 6 of our guys right now who work in student activity, and they go and participate in the food bank drive, which is a university drive. But when these young men go, they're representing in a legacy program. So they do the food bank, and we also do backpacks and some food supplies that we pack for the kids, and we take them to the kids in support of education. So all of these things give them community service hours. It gives them opportunity to give back to the high schools that they attended. It also challenges them to be mentors, because for those guys who are slacking on their grades, I get to challenge them and say, hey, you're a mentor now. You're giving back to your community, so it's important that you move forward in increasing your academic success.
And just to chime in as well, we like to engage with the community events that the institution's already doing instead of creating our own. So then that way we are helping our men of color to see how they can be engaged with the campus, not just engaged with themselves. So like we have a Bobcat Build that we do every year, where we do it as part of the Bobcat Build that Texas State does, or if there's a food drive, or we try to get them to see what the institution does, so that especially since we're doing this for our first year, so that way when they're a continuing student, they can engage those opportunities on their own. But as we transition to serving students after the first year, that might change for us in a bit, but we try to help students see what the institution can offer so they can continue to give as well as receive from the institution.
And kind of, just to add to what Dr. Na was saying, we actually do something similar here. As he mentioned in his presentation, there's a lot of other competing initiatives. So instead of reinventing the wheel, we try to direct our students to participate in our existing programs. One of those programs is a Student Leadership Academy, which is open to all students. And we funnel our students into that program, which has a service learning component. And along with that program, we encourage them to participate in other clubs and organizations. Oftentimes, we ask them to serve as ambassadors for the institution. So we definitely try to get them connected with the community as much as possible and understand the significance of giving back to the community. While we have, a specific initiative that's just solely focused on community engagement, we also plug them into what we're already currently doing.
Manny, the only thing I'll say about that, the community service piece is our Project Male Student Mentoring Program is about impacting our community, right? We're working with, I mentioned 250 young men, 18 schools. And so that's the level of community engagement. And we have some other activities like platicas and things like that. But I think the other example of community engagement is the summits that all partners here are organizing, right? And that creates a space and opportunity for community engagement. And I think it's a powerful vehicle and mechanism to get people engaged and involved from all around the surrounding community. So when Dr. Wallace does the Houston Summit, when Armando does the summit down in South Texas, similar summits at Texas State, you're going to get engagement from the community. You raise awareness about this as an issue. And I think that's another way you also engage in your faculty and administrators, to go back to that question about how do you engage folks in your institution, and you need to assemble that group and create a coordinating group. You could call it an advisory council or what have you, but it's got to be made up of institutional partners. It's got to be made up of partners within those 3 sectors, community partners, and students as well. We can't forget that you need to include students in these conversations. So we're intentional about student voice and underscoring the importance of having them as part of that conversation, right? And so kind of addressing those 2 questions that you had, but I'd be happy to share more information about the mentoring program and ways that if people are interested in maybe establishing something like that. You need partners, you need post-secondary partners. There's plenty of school districts out there that need mentoring for their young men. That's not a problem. It's identifying those post-secondary institutions, and they have, a lot of times they'll have minority male programs on their campuses like the folks that are on the panel now. So it's about bridging those two spaces and taking your mentoring program outside of the space of the institution and into the community. And I think that's a powerful model. It's taken us 8 years to get there, but certainly you start small, you start with one school, and then you build from there.
Well, all right. I think we'll end it at that. And again, thank you all for joining us. I want to thank the panelists for serving as experts and sharing their insight regarding how to launch initiatives and efforts around supporting young men of color on college campuses. Again, the contact information is all there. We will be sharing this presentation and the recording with those of you who've registered. Please feel free to reach out to me if you want to learn more about these efforts or any other effort that we're doing as an organization. And we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Again, thank you all very much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, team.